Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so glad to have a distinguished guest today to talk about Black men and financial health. There's so much going on in the world. You know about the war in Ukraine, you know about inflation. You know that since you've last been to the grocery store, that pound of bacon used to get for about $9 is probably about 17 now. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, and
Pound
we're
of
pleased.
everything.
A pound of
Pound of
everything.
everything.
And let's not get into gas either. But we are so delighted to have Stephen M. Hughes with us, a financial expert. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him and we're going to get straight into it, okay? So first, let me introduce Stephen. Stephen M. Hughes is a financial therapist, Reiki master teacher, and professional speaker who guides his clients to heal their relationship with money. Through one-on-one sessions with his private clients and group talks for corporate teams, he helps people achieve lasting financial wellness. He has served as a financial expert for ABC's Soul of a Nation, Airbnb, Google, and more. And this brother knows a lot about Jamaican and Mexican food, and he knows a lot about travel. So we can't wait to get into it. We have one of the most interesting men on earth here with us, you know, competing with the Dos Equis guy. And to get into it, we'll get started with an icebreaker question. And my question for you is, being that you are a connoisseur of Jamaican and Mexican food, I read somewhere, what is the best dish you've ever tasted in your life?
So first off, I appreciate y'all having me. I know we've connected in the recent past, but I'm glad that we could actually make that connection and make this into fruition as we're talking about financial health during Men's Health Month. But hands down, to answer your question, it's got to be ackee and saltfish, the national dish of the yard. And I think that's an easy question. Like, I eat ackee and saltfish. Matter of fact, fun fact, I eat ackee and saltfish in every city that me and Jess stop in on our nomad journey. And that's, how I start rating a Jamaican restaurant in the city. Like, would I rock with this restaurant again? Then I come back for the escovitch fish. And if neither of those things are on the menu, then it's not a restaurant for me. So.
Understood. Is there a restaurant that stands out to you that has the best ackee and saltfish?
The best ackee and saltfish from it's not a restaurant, but it's from a caterer. His name is Andre Muir in Columbia, South Carolina. And he's got a catering company called Entrees by Andre. And his ackee and saltfish, like, people have to request it months in advance. So do yourself a favor and holler at Dre about that saltfish if you want it.
He's got a waiting list for food?
He does. And when he does lunches on Fridays, like, he will sell plate lunches on Fridays with like his signature pineapple lemonade. It sells out every single time. And for Thanksgiving, he does jerk turkeys. And you have to order them months in advance because they sell out every time too. So I know that there are a couple of my friends who've already put in orders because they know what time it is. So treat yourself.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get that.
Give us the name. Yeah, give us the name again. Give us the name. Give us the name again. And we're in South Carolina.
So it's Andre Muir, Andre Muir, Muir, and he's in Columbia, South Carolina.
Columbia, South Carolina. Okay.
All right. Gonna go to Instagram and check him out.
I just talked to somebody in Miami this couple days ago from Columbia, so I'm gonna check him out on that.
There it is.
I'm shooting a text after.
You should, if they've been so lucky to have it. Like I said, it sells out. So here we are.
No doubt. Well, speaking of Columbia, South Carolina, want to talk a little bit about what'd you learn about finances coming up? What was your life like coming up as a kid in Columbia?
So I am the son of two Jamaican parents. Both of my parents are from Jamaica. My dad's from Kingston. My mom's from Trelawney. And they met in New York, where I was born. And we moved to Columbia, South Carolina in the early 90s. And, the pay from New York is drastically different in South Carolina. And so the things that were said about money to teach us about money were the general information. Oh, you should save, you should budget, you should do the things that you need to do to have a good financial life. But because those things weren't shown to us in practice to say like, hey, this is how I'm budgeting, this is how I'm saving, this is how I'm investing, we didn't really get that information. And, you know, just like any other immigrant family, like education was a big deal in our households. Like hands down, we all knew we needed to go to college, but financial education wasn't pushed as hard. And so as we had some experiences in the house, depending on, I mean, sometimes there were 8 to 10 people living with us, depending on who was here from Jamaica. And also going through like hardships when there was more month than money when it came to like paying the light or water bill. And since we didn't talk about those things, I definitely took those experiences with me to college. So, and we can talk about that later too. But that's what I heard about money, like at a young age, definitely around the house. It was learning by experience more than, you know, someone telling you like, hey, these are the things that you should be doing with your money.
And that's interesting because I know one thing you do talk about is how you know, what our cues about money, what we learn about money from our parents and grandparents and from our family, and how that has a huge effect on how we view money as well. And so I wanted to ask you, when did this conversation about wanting to change the narrative around yourself and your family about money, when did that begin to take shape for you?
So for me, that happened in college. So I got to school and I made every money misstep possible. I had 7 maxed out credit cards. I had overdraft fees to the point they closed all of my bank accounts. I had repossessions, plural. I got evicted from my apartment when I was in college. My credit score was a 385 at one point. Like, yeah, your eyebrows just hit the ceiling. It's all good. But because we turned that around. But as I had those experiences, that's when I really knew something had to change, like something had to shake, because it's not that I was just having these experiences solely on my own. There were other people around me who were having money challenges too. Maybe not to the extent that I was having them, but we all made mistakes with our money in college. And I think that when I started seeing people investing, I still remember somebody was talking about an IRA like my senior year, when I was the president of a business fraternity and we were hosting an event. And I asked them, I was like, what, an IRA? Like, what are you doing? And they said, this is what I use to invest. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I ended up opening one and had no idea what I was doing, but I started contributing money to it. And when I started getting hit with fees, even though I didn't know what was going on, I was like, oh, I should probably learn something about money at this point. And there was someone who gave me a book called The Richest Man in Babylon, which is like, for people who've never read it, it's a book just full of stories. And, you know, I'm a music head. Like I love music. And when it comes to rap music,
we can put you all together some more.
Okay, that's
a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, we can. That's another month.
Including your father from Kingston. We're gonna talk about that too. But go ahead. Okay. I'm sorry. Back to the music head.
No, we could definitely rap about that. But because I'm a music head and I listen to like rap music for the storytellers, this reason why Ghostface Killah is still in my top 5. Like I read the book and it spoke to me to say, oh, these are the things you need to go ahead and do. And that began like me making some real changes in my financial life, and things kind of, you know, grew from there.
What time span was that for you? Was that while you're still in college? Because you went to Clemson, is that correct?
Yeah, I went to Clemson. I dropped out of Clemson in 2010. I was a 5th year senior and I needed one class to graduate and I made a D in it. And I'd already had like 5 job offers. And I just went with a couple of them that said, oh, I don't mind that you didn't graduate. Like I've seen your resume. You've already gone through the interview process. It is what it is. And so when that was in 2010, in 2012 is when things like finally started looking up. I had definitely hit financial rock bottom, like right around 2011, at the end of 2011. And so when I started changing really like the information that I was getting, like to reapply it to the things that I had done in the past, like the mistakes that I'd already made, things started to shift for me. So around 2012, I started really coming out of that. I would call it a dark financial place. And I can smile about it now because it's helped me help more people. But looking back on it or thinking back on it, I've been in financial education for 10 years now, because once I started like changing my financial habits and actions, I started just sharing my story with people. I let them know like, hey, these are the mistakes that I made. This is how I fixed them. This is what I got going on. And really just to make sure that for people who were making the same mistakes that I did, they had a way to fix it. Or for people who had never made those mistakes, they didn't have to. And so this was before like me becoming a certified financial education instructor and studying for a financial behavioral specialist and becoming a financial therapist. But in the early days, it was just like, oh, this is trial and error, and this trial worked. Y'all need to look at this thing. And that was around 2012.
My eyes did not hit the ceiling at the credit score. Like we have all struggled at times due to certain circumstances. So no judgment free zone here.
I got you.
We are learning. We are learning.
So, we began our talks. We met you a couple months ago. One thing that was really interesting about the way you approach financial education is that you include the spiritual component about that, and how that factors into our behavior around money. For people who may not quite get that correlation, can you make it clear for them why your spiritual state, your mind state, factors into the way you approach finances?
Yeah, sure. So in short, everything is connected. Every single thing is connected. And for me, that didn't really click until I started making changes in my physical health, in my physical or in my fitness life, and then in my financial life. So right around the same time, like I had been going through a transformation physically, where I was losing, getting rid of weight that I didn't need anymore. And at my heaviest in college, when I wasn't really locked into my weight and my health, I was 297 pounds, like 3 pounds shy, a couple of McDonald's trips shy of being 300 pounds. And so as I took my health more serious, I started looking at other places in my life that needed that type of attention. And so, earlier on in 2012, all of these things were starting to kind of make a headway. And for a lot of my clients, like I started working with colleges and universities to help their students really understand money and reduce their financial stress. But I also started working with people one-on-one. And as I worked with more millennials who they had made some financial decisions in the past that were against their best interest, and they, couldn't stick to a budget, or they weren't investing or saving the way that they wanted to. And as I was able to make it clear to say, hey, what are some other things that are happening in your life? How do you feel about money? Because it's nothing about saving and spending. Money is energy, just like any and everything else. And not to, go over anybody's head, we recognize energy. We can talk about spiritual energy all day, but for the people who are like, I don't know what y'all are talking about, if you walk into a room after two people were just arguing, you can feel the tension in the room. That's energy. If you meet somebody for the first time and y'all become fast friends, that's energy, meeting somebody else's energy and y'all's wavelengths being on the same place. And our money works the same way. When you are in that state where you are scared of money, or you feel guilty about money or shameful about money, money doesn't want to be around. Like, that's not the place that money wants to hang around. And so we have to think about how we are bringing things to us, just like in the spiritual realm. We have heard it many times before that that our tongues are powerful weapons, that any thought, anything that we think about grows. And so there's nothing else like that outside of energy. And so I want to make sure that people are clear that just like nature and just like God intended, we want to be in abundance. And so this energy needs to align with that, including on the money side.
Wow, that was deep.
I'm trying to keep it light because I don't know who all is listening.
This
You know
is
what I mean? I'm
good.
trying to keep it
This
light.
is
But
good. This works,
going,
man.
keep
This
going.
is keep doing it, man. And so in researching for the interview, one thing that I've seen that we've talked about a lot is also trauma. In addition, and how trauma can impact our relationship with money. What are some signs or symptoms, if you will, of that financial trauma, and how does that manifest itself when we become adults?
Sure. So first off, like just for people who are new to even hearing that as a term, financial trauma, one thing that I'll ask you to think about is we are familiar when we hear a veteran or someone going through PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, financial trauma is very similar, where something in your life happened around money, and it was so big and impactful that it has shaped and changed the way that you think, feel, and even act with money. And so if you, like, for example, some financial trauma that someone may have experienced, that I've experienced, is being displaced from your home. Like living on a couch or in a car, like as far as sleeping because you got evicted from your apartment. And we could talk about that even on the earlier ages when you are a child and maybe your whole family is displaced, where you have to move around from place to place, or maybe you experience the lights or water being cut off, or maybe you experience that you can't pay for college, and so you're taking out all of these loans that you don't understand, and now you're in student loan debt and also don't have the income to pay off these things. Like there are so many actions that can be financially traumatic to us that make us feel and think differently about money. And so if you're an adult, like you may see this play out with people who are super money avoidant. Like they don't even want to talk about money. Like if you bring money up, whether it's good or bad, get away from me. Or maybe they're avoidant even to deal with financial situations. Like bills come in the mail. I remember I used to do this. Bills would come in the mail and I would throw them away. I didn't even want to open them. Or a bill collector would be calling me, and instead of me letting them know like, hey, I don't have your payment this month, let's work something out, I just let it go to voicemail. And if somebody mentioned something to me like, oh, your phone's ringing, I'm like, oh, their number ain't in my phone, I don't need to answer it, it's all good. And so I think there are multiple signs that we could see when someone has gone through some type of financial traumatic experience. And like as adults, we're still learning about money. At a very young age, at the age of 3, we start putting this equation together of money and value. And as these things happen, like we see different things, we hear different things, we experience different things, that makes us, that locks in our financial foundation or even how we think about money. But as adults, don't put it off to think that, oh, it's just the things that happened to me as a kid. Because that, like those things from before and even things that are happening now are going to play a huge part in how you move with your money.
John, is this man preaching or what?
He is. He is. I thought it was interesting, Stephen, even when you were talking about the IRA earlier and your experience, in leadership, in college and being exposed to that, right? I mean, it sounds like a blessing and a curse, right? The curse in the sense of, like you said, you didn't necessarily know what it was, and, fees start hitting and things of that nature. But the blessing in the sense of sometimes just being in the right environment, right? Being exposed to things can, really create a situation to just educate you, inform you. And that's why we need, colleagues and friends and young people to be in spaces where they can be informed and educated. I mean, for me, even related to, getting things like points for American
Mm.
Express or something of that nature. That's something that I saw play out on internship, right? I
Yeah.
remember a good buddy of mine now, a mentor of mine. I remember, he was, again, I'm a young college student. We ain't had no money, right? But, here's lunch or something of that nature. And he's like, taking everybody's cash. And even if it's short, right? I mean, if we young college students, I want Steven and Tacoma like, hey man, we $8 short. Right? Like somebody need to come up with some more money. Let's do this math again, especially as engineers. But he was not doing that. He was like, I got the cash. And then later on, I realized what was happening. He was putting on his American Express. So so he didn't care if he was $8 short. He was building those points because he understood, how he could leverage that for something greater. But again, just being exposed to that and understanding, look, you're going to pay this expense anyway. If you pay this expense and then transfer that expense, there's some value that you can gain from that, especially if you learn to keep up with that and manage that, right?
Yes. Especially if you learn to keep.
Yeah,
I was going to say that last part was
critical.
Very critical, because if your friend in school, if he was just swiping the American Express card and pocketing the cash, then I mean he would have a good day, maybe even a good week or month. But as the money builds up and he can't pay off the card, then the interest rate isn't the points, I'll say, aren't enticing enough to rack up the crazy interest rate that's on cards. Like on average, the interest rate for a credit card is like 21%. And so for people who hear those numbers and might even have those interest rates on your card, that means that every $100 that you borrow, you have to pay $21 back. And if you're paying, the $25, $30 monthly payment, they love you because you're going to be paying it for a minute. And so that's just one thing. I'm glad you said that at the end. You brought it home there.
That's right. Hey, even more importantly there, I'm not going to knock any specific brand, but if we were talking about, Capital One or whatever it was, and you were gaining some kind of incentive for that, you're right, Stephen, there's an opportunity to kind of stretch that out, and there's higher interest rate. The interesting thing about American Express, they want their money then, right?
Right.
It's like you've used our card, we've given you your points, pay us now, not later.
Right.
We're not on a cycle where we're going to let you stretch this out. Pay us right now. So
exactly.
you gotta have the revenue to be able to keep that cycle up.
Yes. And American Express, they are a charge account, so they'll tell you, hey, run me my money at the end of the month. But also
money right now.
Exactly. In the fine print, they also say, and if you don't, this is the interest rate for you not running me my money on time.
That's right.
And so that's something to be mindful of as well.
Indeed.
Can you talk a little bit about scarcity mindsets and how that can manifest in the way we approach money as well?
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about financial trauma, and the scarcity mindset is built from experience and from media. Like if you are getting the information that you shouldn't be asking for this, for example, at a job, right? They tell you that you should not talk to your employees or your coworkers about your salary, that'll let things go off the rails. But we're seeing more and more push to get people to not only post salary ranges when you're posting a job, but to also be more transparent in what the pay is, so they know if they're on par with their coworkers at all. And for someone who is experiencing scarcity mindset, they may never even ask for a raise. They may never even inquire about, how they are being compensated at their job. So it's something that can wreck in the long run your financial position. But as far as how it's developed, it's from those money experiences. So as we're young, we start learning about money from the things that we hear, the things that we see, and the things that we experience. So if you're experiencing things that make you fearful of money, like, the lights are cut off and we don't have enough to pay it. The water is cut off and we have to go find a deposit. The house is getting foreclosed on and we need to get an organization to help us pay it off so that we can stay in the house. Even down to how money is talked about around your house. If you're consistently hearing that, oh, we don't have no money, and we can't afford this or we can't afford that, then you're going to, you may develop, I'm not gonna say you're going to, because there's some outliers, but you may develop a scarcity mindset around money. Like there's just never enough. We don't have enough to pay these bills. We don't have enough to, and so, and you'll see that play out with a lot of adults with the way that they manage their money in terms of their budgeting. Like you'll hear people, even like famous people in the personal finance community, they'll tell you, hey, if you really want to get your money under control, you need to stop drinking the coffee out of the doors. Like stop going to Starbucks. You need to drink your coffee at home. I mean, $60 a month is literally a half of a gas tank now. Please leave me alone about the Starbucks that I drink 3 times a week. But what should really happen is that we focus on the biggest financial decisions that we make. And if you're scarce, if you have a scarcity mindset about money, another thing that happens is that you don't ask money questions. If someone of authority tells you like, hey, this is what you should sign, this is what everybody else is doing, you don't have to read this is how it all works, you may just flip through the pages and sign an initial where they're asking you to, because you're thinking like, I can't make this decision. I don't want to be in this situation, or I want this situation to pass as fast as it can. And so that's how it plays out into our adult life. But having that mindset can impact us in the long term, not only us, but our families, our neighborhoods, our communities, if we don't address it to say, hey, how do I get to the root of this challenge?
Following up on that, so what is the end result of that? Like, what typically manifests in our communities and our families when this stuff gets is untreated or unaddressed?
So when it comes to the scarcity mindset, like let's think about some of the examples that I gave. So if you are at a job where you're complaining about it, you don't like it, and they're not compensating you the way they should. Like we know what time it is. We've seen, we know people in our network who hate their jobs right now. They didn't want to go back to the office. They were telling people like, hey, if I could stay remote forever, this would be the lick. And I think that, we decide that we're just going to go along to get along, thinking that things are going to get better, but we may not ask for things to be better. We may not ask for that raise. So we see that play out. Also, when you experience some of the financial missteps or mistakes at a young age, it also impacts the way that you communicate about money. So as you and your partner, you and your spouse are talking about money, and you have had maybe a rougher or humble beginnings, as people say, maybe you are focused on like hoarding money, like squirreling away some money on the other end of the spectrum. And you're not thinking about like, oh, this money should be invested. This money should be working for us. This money should be making us more money. And so like the mindset, it can wreak havoc on both ends, whether you have a lot of money or whether you have a lot of money and don't know what to do with it and you're scarce about it, or you don't have a lot of money and are just deathly afraid of even thinking about getting more, and how that happens because you see, how people talk about money. And we don't have to get into this now, but like one of the dumbest myths that we've heard about money is that it's the root of all evil. And no one wants to be around evil. So you're thinking about someone who also already has a scarcity mindset, and then they're hearing that money is the root of all evil. Do they want to get more money? Would they like more of that in their life? And so there's a lot of things that play like in the scarcity mindset that will like prevent us from really doing the things we need to do, not only for our families, but for the community.
You alluded to this, but what would you say to someone who says, well, I used to have money problems, but I just got a promotion on the job. I'm making so much more money now. I'm in a different station of life. So my money problems are over now, right? I'm making more money. What would you say to someone who tells you that?
So someone who tells me that, is this a client or just someone on the street? But if we're not going to get into the specifics, no worries. Like if someone told me that, I would ask them how they feel. How do you feel about your financial situation? Not your income, not you getting an increase at work, but how do you feel about your current financial situation? Do you feel like if they laid you off, you would be okay for 6 months, even with things ramping up on the inflation? Do you feel like you have other resources, even outside of financial resources, that you could lean on when times get tough or rough. And one thing that I want to make clear, like as we're talking about someone getting a promotion and feeling like, oh, things are figured out now. Income doesn't mean security. Just because you're making more money, one, doesn't mean that you're going to save it or invest it. Like lifestyle creep is a real thing where the more money you make, you're like, oh, I'm gonna I deserve it. Like I've been working hard. I'm gonna, you know what I'm saying? Exactly. So now instead of your expenses being $5,000, they're $6,000 a month. So that's an extra 12 G's a year. In 5 years, that's 60 G's. So like for someone who is telling me that they got a raise or they got a promotion, they're feeling good. I want to feel good with them. I'm not trying to bust their bubble. I just want to make sure that they know, like, hey, when it comes to security, like securing themselves financially, it's not just about the income at the full-time gig.
Yeah, that's valuable right there. Very valuable. The other thing about that also is, understanding, I love that. And you said, kind of attributing that income and maybe employment, not connecting that directly to security, right? I mean, people wake up all the time and they're in wonderful situations and then find out that situation has changed. They're not in control of that situation. So whereas on the other end, through entrepreneurship and things of that nature, yes, it could be a rocky road. Yes, it could be very risk adverse and things of that nature, but at least you're attempting to make certain decisions that you can control your own fate, as opposed to getting a call or getting an email and somebody telling you, hey, the gig is up. Which is challenging at best.
Yeah, and let's make it clear that we rock with 9-to-5 jobs too. Like if you have a 9-to-5 job, by all means, keep the party going and build your wealth, my guy. But at the same time, if that's cut off or you're not using the money that you're getting from the full-time job in a way to build money in the future, I think that's the perspective shift that we have to change, to say, I want this money to pay for more money. I want it to go and get me more money. And I have a couple of friends that are authors now. They just dropped a book last week, Julian and Kirsten Saunders. The book's called Cashing Out. And they lay out a plan for Black America to say, hey, the new 15 is the new 30 when it comes to how long you should be working a career. And they lay out really not walking away from your 9-to-5 job, but thinking about how you can still bring money in your household, whether the check is coming bi-weekly or not.
Absolutely. I love that. That's something we'll have to look into and feature, Takuma, cashing out. Yeah, that's I agree with that, Stephen, in the sense of, I rock with folks that work their 9-to-5s, 8-to-5s, 8-to-6s, whatever.
Right.
So many times, especially as an entrepreneur, so many times people reference, hey man, John, I'm ready to take the leap. And I'm like, all right, relax on the leap. Folks don't always have to leap. It's not necessary all the time. I think I'm freezing, guys.
Right.
Yeah, it's not always necessary to leap, right? Sometimes you can do both. And especially if you're not being forced to take a leap, you don't have to do that all the time. You leverage that opportunity, again, leverage that consistency to map out some ways to benefit you otherwise.
For sure.
I heard a great podcast that you're featured in where you're talking about the 4 money mindsets. And it was really interesting because it ties into like the next question I wanted to ask you about, for anyone who's, experiencing trauma with money, who feel like they're not making the best financial decisions, who may be stuck in a cycle of scarcity or financial trauma. What would you say they can do to begin to reverse that tide, to change that narrative that they have around money? What are some steps can they take to address that?
So for people who can recognize, because that's another thing too, we can't see the picture while we're in the frame. And so us having a scarce mindset about money may not come to us to say like, oh, I have a scarce mindset about money, unless people around us are saying or starting to have some money conversations with us. But for someone who can recognize that they are not thinking about money the way that they want to, and they want to change that, one thing that they can do is to identify their money story. So what are the things that you heard growing up about money? What are the things that you saw when it came to money as you were growing up? What were the things that you experienced when you were growing up around money? And then also answer the question of, what did your parents, and then their parents experience when it came to money? And some of these questions are going to spark some conversations in some families where you may have to ask, your mother or your father about, how do they feel about money? And if y'all never grew up talking about money, well, this is one for you, because as we decide that we're going to do some things different, we're going to have to take some different action. But a lot of those questions can be answered just experiential. For you to sit down and write down and say, like, you know what? The things I heard about money were money is the root of all evil, or money doesn't grow on trees, or when I was walking around my household, I always heard that we don't have money for that, or we can't go on that field trip, whatever it was. And start answering those questions, even having like a hot pen journaling situation where you start the page with one of those questions and you just let your hand do the writing for the full page. Because as you read that back, you're going to not only see things that you already knew, you're going to see things that you never even verbalized before. And to start getting clarity on your money story is where things start to say like, okay, well, what do I really need to change? Do I need to change the way that I talk to myself about money through like affirmations and declarations and disrupting negative thoughts and feelings around money? Do I need to get better advice when it comes to money? I've been listening to Uncle Rick, but he don't got no money. So should I be listening to him? Should I change the person that I'm getting information from? And some of these next steps will start appearing for you as you get clear on your money story. And so that's one thing that everyone can do. Like, it doesn't cost anything for anybody. If you don't have the money to invest in a financial therapist or someone else, you can start investigating these things for yourself. And another thing that I'll mention that people can do, because I think it gives like a really clear picture on how you think and feel with money. Make a list of the 5 people who are closest to you in your life, whether it's your parents and your siblings, some friends, family members, whoever. And for each of those people, write down the 5 characteristics that you believe really identify how they act with money. And after you do that, go and write down the 5 characteristics you believe identify how you interact with money, and circle the ones that are the same. And you will see that the people around you also impact the way that you think about money, the way that you move with money. And so if you have a scarcity mindset, it may also be that your circle is scared of money too. And so there are things that you'll start to see that, oh, maybe I should change this as I want to get better, as I want some new results.
Steve, I'm about to break up some folks' circles, Takuma. get on away now.
I'm about to make some new ones. That's what it is. Or ask your people to ascend with you. Like I have a group of friends from middle school that, we still talk every single week or every single month. My best friend, like one of them in that group, is getting married this weekend. And as a group, we've talked about investments. We've invested together. We've had businesses together. I currently have a real estate investment group that I run with 4 of the bros. And to not get it confused, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi. I'm not going to get into all that, but I know John's going to say some foolishness, so I'm not even going to get into all that. But the Omega Psi Phi fraternity,
we love the Hughes. That's right.
No, and we love y'all too, so it's all good. But we have a real estate investment group with 4 of the bros that went to school together, like around the same time. And each month we contribute $250 to the group. And while that might not sound like a lot of money to get started in real estate, we're on our fourth investment, and we started the group in 2019, November 2019. Awesome. And so that friend group that I'm talking about is paramount, because when I didn't have my money together, if I could look around me and see that people were doing better financially, I could ask some questions like, dang, what are you doing? What you got going on?
And you want to level up, right?
Exactly.
You also want to ascend, like you said.
Exactly.
Ascend with them.
Exactly. So I'm not trying to break any groups up. Hopefully they'll level up with you. If they won't, good luck and God bless to them.
That's right. The value of that also, again, as Stephen referenced, love you all too. He's talking about Alpha Phi Alpha, and in Beta Nu. Again, I played at FAMU. We also have some investment groups. And the great thing about that, I think, is that people are in spaces and times of their life where sometimes, because of their experiences, because of their lived experiences, because of their education, they just know more than you, right? Which is a good thing. Yeah. I'm over here, I might have expertise over here where I can tell you easily, don't do that. That's foolish, right? Whereas in somebody over here, I know very little about, but they have that expertise and those lived experiences, and they can share and guide you. So they just know more. So to hear people referencing and providing insight and educating about, finances is valuable. I think very valuable.
Exactly. No, I couldn't say it better.
So, wow. And I'm really appreciating this discussion. It's gone by quickly. We've got like about 15 minutes left. And I know that
I didn't even look at the time. Yeah, it did go by.
Keep going.
By. So we referenced in the beginning about, the times that we're living in right now. There's a lot of fear right now out there. There's a lot of instability. The stock market is down. People are losing money on crypto. The price of Bitcoin is nowhere where it was last November, as we know. And, for us out there who are experiencing a lot of fear and paranoia about, is there going to be a recession? What's going to happen with the food prices in the fall? The gas prices are already high. What kind of advice would you give to people who are experiencing that paranoia to help them through like this moment, to get them ready for this moment that could or could not be coming?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think that the biggest thing that we can do when it comes to preparing for that. So I'll give you individually and then collectively. But individually, I think the biggest thing that we can do is understand that everybody is feeling the inflation prices rise. Everybody is feeling the market pinch and the crypto pinch and everything else in regards to like investment vehicles. But it's hard to think about everybody when your house isn't in order, when you don't have like the financial resources that you need. And so I ask people to stop drinking from the fire hose. Like social media will hit you with every single headline that you just mentioned. And if, in 24 hours, take your time and be paranoid or feel the way that you feel or get those emotions out. But after those 24 hours, just take a step back and assess where you are so that you can start making plans of action for yourself and for your family. Whether it's, I need to get a new job or a different job so I can save more money, or I need to move. Like we need to move from where we are to a place that we can manage better, just to think about these things that could happen. For someone who may be renting, or if somebody's like, hey, we can get up out of this house, catch the windfall, and then do some different things. But I think that because we're experiencing this, and this is not something that happens all the time, but it is something that happens consistently as an economic cycle, we're going to have to make uncomfortable and big money decisions. And some of those are things like, let's go down to a one-car family. Like, let's sell this car. Or, thinking about the way that you can add the most money to your savings. If right now you don't have an emergency savings account. And, you will hear on TV like, you should have 6 to 12 months of your expenses saved up. What people don't tell you, and what I used to hear all the time when as I do speaking engagements, I would ask people like, hey, on a scale from 1 to 10, how hard do y'all think that is? And people would just say hard. They wouldn't even think about the number, because it's something you can't even, for some people, how could I save 6 months of my expenses with the money that I'm making now, or with the money that I've left over? And so for people who are individually feeling that crunch and that creep, it's time to take a step back and, maybe now that you hear what's going to happen or what could happen, stay away from this media, because as I said before, the more energy you give to something, the more it's going to grow. And start putting your energy towards like growing your income or savings. Start putting your energy towards getting things in order so that you can recognize what you have at your fingertips when it comes to resources, not just on the financial side. Maybe you have some family members that if everything hit the fan, you could go back to that house. Like make some plans that are worst case scenario now, so that okay, I can get through this. Like we can get through this together as things move down that road for the rest of the year. And collectively, I think the biggest thing we can do is to build community and talk openly about like where we are financially, so that we can help each other. One thing about that's super helpful in Jamaica is that we have a partner. And in the partner, it's similar to a susu in other Caribbean countries or Latin countries, but everybody's putting in this money, the same amount of money. Let's say it's $100 a month. And I'm not talking about the weird money wheels or flowers that you saw a couple of years ago that said that they were susus or partners. They weren't. Right. But really how it operated, like historically, is that a community of people came together. Like I've managed susus or partners. I've been in other ones, but every month we would contribute the same amount together, $100, let's call it. And every month someone would get that pot of money, and we would do it until everyone got paid out. And, while some people are saying like, why would I do that? It was an amazing, or it still is an amazing community savings tool, where people are using their windfall for paying for school or paying for a business or putting a down payment on something, or just building up their savings because they didn't have the discipline to do it before. So the more that you can build community now, like before things really hit the fan, if you're there, and really get prepared for what could happen by the end of the year, then you'll know that you don't have to just lean on money. You can lean on real human resources. You can lean on people. And that's how we're supposed to be built in the first place. And so those are things that people can do to get prepared, and also to take some of the impact on the inflation off. Like me and Jess, we're nomads. Right now I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. And we've been taking turns on cooking, like just throughout the month that we've been here, staying with my best friend and his fiance. And that makes a difference in the money world, sharing expenses. And so I think the more that we get back to community living and like knowing who we can call on and lean on and who we want to build with, that'll be like one of the best solutions in this time and in this cycle.
Stephen, what about, what's your advice for the youth, a young mindset, right? Again, you talked about the mistakes and the lessons that you learned when you were younger. What would you say to the younger Stephen? What would you say to, your partners when they were, young guys or young gals, and for the youth today to just, again, all this wisdom and resources around them, what would you give them for fruit that would, benefit them later?
Yeah, for the younger generation, one thing that I mentioned, like when I'm talking to college students or high school students, the question that every single group, someone from the group always asks me is, how can I make money? How can I make money right now? And so like the next generation, they're so entrepreneurial. They are so used to betting on themselves. They're thinking already about like how they can make a way instead of working a job, a lot of them, or getting a side hustle to start things before they get a job. And so I think that the younger generation is in a better position than a lot of us had been when we were younger and talking about money, because they have access to different resources like podcasts that will talk about money and someone who actually knows what they're talking about, lectures that you can find on YouTube and different things like that. But earlier I mentioned like drinking from the fire hose when it came to all the media or the news that we consume. And one thing that I'll mention to like the younger generation is to figure out something that you want to try in the financial world. If you're interested in investing in the stock market, investing in real estate, investing in crypto, investing in your own like business and starting something from scratch, now is the time to do it. But start getting focused on that one thing so that you can really give it a shot. Because since people are so young, like I just told you about all of the mistakes that I've made financially. And it was, 10 years ago. And there's still things that, I step in and I'm like, dang, I should have did that better. But for people for the younger generation, they have the ability to see these things that have happened. They have the ability to get information before that happens. And if they give themselves the opportunity to really learn something that they're interested in and decide like, oh, is this something that I want to keep going with long term? Whether it's, oh, do I want to keep investing in the stock market in this specific way, like trading or doing different things? That is one of the best things that we can do, like for our younger generation. Give them the runway to try this new thing and to show them or guide them to the person who can help them try this new thing, instead of, saying like, I don't know how that works, or you shouldn't be doing that. Because there are a lot of there are a lot of adults that have been in our life that have given us money advice that had no idea if it was right or wrong. They just wanted to see if it was going to work. And we don't need to do that to our next generation. We can point them in a better direction and say like, hey, I don't know, but you can use this podcast like Journey to Launch with Jamila Souffrant, or like checking out the Earn Your Leisure Network to learn more about different things and different ways to make money, or even just getting better at understanding how your younger self is experiencing these different things when it comes to money and how it changes how you feel and think about it. And so my advice, I know that was super long, but my advice is for the younger generations to find something that you are super interested in right now when it comes to the money world, and go in on it and find the right people to listen to when it comes to that thing. And if you need someone to like, hey, who should I listen to when it comes to stocks or real estate? Ask me. I'll send you recommendations. But that's the best thing that I think we can do for our younger generation, to just put them in a position where work is optional sooner for them, where they don't have to wait for 70 or 60 or 55, or I'm trying to be done with working by 45. So I think that if they have that runway and that perspective sooner, and as I say that, maybe it's because the book Cashing Out is on my mind because I just finished reading it, but Julian and Kirsten talk about that too. And so I think there are a lot of resources for our generation coming up that they're in good hands, I feel like.
Stuff.
Wow. Well, we're toward the end here, but usually, we like to ask, is there anything you'd like to add? Do you have any other, you mentioned a few book titles, a podcast here. Is there any materials or any books people could seek out to be better at money, or anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, in regards of being better at money, I think that starting with your money story is the first thing that people can do, because it'll help you understand what money cycle you're in, whether you are needing to shift your money mindset or stabilize your household or sustain good money habits that you've created and want to build upon, or stacking towards your money goals. Like those are the 4 money cycles when we're making healthy money decisions that everyone's going to experience. And once you understand your money story, then you'll be able to say, maybe I need some more help on stabilizing my situation, or I've been doing pretty good, but now I need to sustain these habits. What are things that I need to do here? And the last thing that I would say, like, if there are any questions from people who have been listening, I would love to reward people that have given us their time by answering their question if they have any. And so I can't see the chat or anything else like that, so y'all have to let me know. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to us wanting to do better with our money. and being more comfortable and open with talking to not only the people in our lives about money, but talking to ourselves about money in a positive way. The biggest change that happened for me was when I changed the way that I was talking to myself. When I started meditating every single morning, when I started affirming myself every single morning, I create the atmosphere that I live in. I grow in love, abundance, and creativity every day. I have a healthy body with no ailments, aches, or pain. I have a healthy mind that is connected to the source of the Most High. When you hear yourself say these things, it's hard to stay in a negative thought about money or even your person, because I know that I'm connected to the Most High. We're sharing the same, all the same information. It's about me acknowledging it and being aware of it and growing into it. And I know John said I got deep earlier. I feel I'm about to jump in again, but I think that that's the biggest.
I like it.
I was gonna say that's the biggest thing. Like, the more that we can acknowledge that everything is connected, that it's not just us making money decisions, it's us making health decisions, it's us making mental health decisions, it's us making physical health decisions when we're deciding how we're spending our money and how we're voting on these different things with our dollars. Then things are going to get better with our money. And that starts with really peeling the onion back and deciding that we're going to talk about our money story, no matter how traumatic it may have been. And for people who need that support, I have a therapist that I work with, and I think therapy is of the utmost importance, to have someone that you can talk to about the things you have going on. But you also may want to seek out a financial therapist, someone who can zero in on the root causes of why you think about why you think about money the way that you do, and why you behave with it in the same manner. And that's my parting thought, if we don't have any questions from the chat.
How does one find you if they would like a financial therapist, whether that be yourself or others? But for you specifically, how do they find you, Stephen?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram. I'm Stephen M. Hughes, the same way that my name's spelled here, STEVENM, like money, HUGHES. And you can also find me on my website, stephenmhughes.com, if you want to learn more about how I help my clients one-on-one through financial therapy, which includes money Reiki sessions. I also have sessions for corporate, like Takuma mentioned earlier. I've been working with some great companies like Airbnb, Google, ABC News, and I'm excited to work with more companies. I want to keep spreading the financial wellness across our community, not just in our houses, but in our places of business, in our companies, because we spend so much time there. And so Instagram is the best way to connect with me. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn for the people who are LinkedIn popping over there. And yeah, reach out to me. I definitely want to help more people not only understand where they are financially, but really get to the root of their money problems, so they can live not only their money life, but their life across the board better.
Wow, thank you so much for your time. Very powerful information. We're going to get this up on YouTube. We'll have some pieces of content that we will let people know about. This is just a wonderful session. So we really thank you for taking the time to meet with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Let's stay close, Stephen. We need to do this some more, man. A lot of folks have a lot of questions. We're not going to, jump into it today, but we definitely want to get maybe back to ask you anything or something of that nature where people can really drill down. Just great information, brother. Great information.
Yes, sounds good. I'm down with the Ask Me Anything session. And I appreciate y'all doing the work that y'all are doing to not only focus on our health, but our family's health across the board. And so I appreciate y'all for the conversation, for hosting it, and for hosting me. And enjoy the rest of the night, fellas.
And you all stay safe, man, on the road, world traveling.
Will do. Y'all too.
Amen. All right.
Take it easy.
Peace.